All right, what's going on, guys? Caden Cleveland here with the Oklahoma Senate, and you're joining us for another episode of OK Senate on Deck. Of course, just like every week, we are going to be joined with our President Pro Tem of the Oklahoma Senate, Senator Greg Treat. Senator Treat this week is going to be talking to us a lot about the budget announcement that was just released a few days ago. And specifically, we're going to be talking about some of the key investments and key focuses that are within the budget. We're going to be talking a lot about education investments, criminal justice reform investments, and even some government efficiency investments. So you're not going to miss this. Some really important key stuff going to be in this episode, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back. As I mentioned before, we are of course with President Pro Tem Greg Treat, and we're going to be talking a lot about budget today. There was a budget agreement just a few days ago that was announced. Pro Tem Treat you and Roger Thompson were huge in that process and make sure that process got done. We talked about it a lot on the last podcast. But just to dive right in, Pro Tem, one of the key areas of focus in this year's budget was huge investments in education. So just kind of starting there, can you kind of give us the inside information on what exactly is the investments with the education?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that Roger Thompson and I were huge in it, but really it was a caucus and Senate, really. Every member of the Senate is part of a subcommittee, and they've done yeoman's work really since about last August. But since we've been in session since February, just digging into the budget details, sharpening the pencils, looking at these agency requests and saying, no, you can do it for less.
Right.
That put us in a position to make huge investments in education, common ed, higher ed, career tech. It also allowed us to save back money, $200 million. It was just, this is the best budget I've been a part of since I've been here. I've been here since 2011. We've had some rough years, but the hard work we've done over the last two sessions, plus the hard work of the subcommittee chairs and members, along with Roger Thompson and his team, just have done a fabulous job. Obviously, we can't do it alone, so working with the governor's office and the House counterparts, altogether, this is a budget that Oklahomans can be proud of. It represents our values. It puts an absolute exclamation point that education is our focus. And the Senate focused the whole time. We've been unabashed about trying to get more dollars into the classroom. We're able to achieve another $74 million on top of teacher pay to get into the classroom. And I'm very proud of the work that the Senate has done, but the House and the governor should be proud of the work they've done as well.
Awesome. So kind of going through the budget and where the focuses are, you mentioned the $74 million that's going to be going to classroom funding. Last week we talked about what exactly that looks like in our last podcast about how schools now have the ability to use those funds to hire more teachers if they want to, or give teachers.
And hiring more teachers means lower classroom sizes.
Absolutely,
those should be equitable in people's mind, or equate to, I should say.
Absolutely.
When you hear more classroom funding, what that really means is more teachers, lower classroom sizes.
That's right, absolutely. So we talked about the classroom funding, and then also on top of that was a teacher raise, which, what was the price tag on that?
Yeah, it was for a full year, it's $70 million.
Gotcha, okay.
In this budget, we started in September, so right around $60 million.
Gotcha. So what can teachers expect this year, or I guess looking forward to next year in their paycheck to increase?
Yeah, so there are a lot of school districts across Oklahoma, 520 or so. About 40 of those are off the formula.
Okay.
Gets kind of in the weeds and wonky, but off the formula means they don't get the state aid formula that seeks to make funding across the state equitable.
Okay.
So those schools that are not on the formula, what I'm about to say doesn't apply to you. Those who are on the formula, 97% of the students in Oklahoma, their teachers will be seeing a $1,222 increase in pay annualized. And so on top of the average of $6,100 the year before. So huge deal, keeping the momentum. Last year when I stood before the podium as the majority floor leader and said we had a budget deal, I kept saying this is not a one and done. We realize we can't just put a significant amount of money in education this year, would have been saying that last year, and just rest on our laurels. Because if you rest on your laurels, you fall back behind.
That's right.
What myself, my colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
governor and the House members did is we said, we were serious last year. We're keeping our foot on the pedal.
That's good. That's good. So I guess we talk a lot about common education there. You mentioned before about career techs and higher ed. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit and what those investments are going to look like?
Higher ed over the past few budget years when it's been tougher has taken a higher cut than other areas of education. Other areas of education have been largely protected.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't seen increases, but they haven't seen the cuts that other agencies have.
Right.
Higher ed's has not been exempt from some of the cuts. You know, they have tuition and other things that offset some of the state share of costs. So we were able to invest a significant amount of money into faculty races this year for the first time in a long time.
That's great.
We've got to keep and attract quality faculty at our higher ed institutions. Career tech, which trains the workforce, which drives the economy, it's the most flexible in all the education arena because they can turn on a dime. If an industry wants to look at Oklahoma, they can retool and train those people. They do a fabulous job. They get a lot of ad valorem local, but the state supports that as well, and we put another significant amount of money into career tech this year.
Gotcha. And that's been something, I believe there was a quote that we saw this past week from the director of the career tech where, I mean, the Oklahoma career tech system is the envy of surrounding states. Honestly, it's a program that is very much well set up and trains students very well for those career positions.
Yeah,
so.
They've got part of Common Ed. They've got kids who are in the K through 12 system, but they also have adults who are getting retooled to be able to do another job. They perform a very important function. They're not just the envy of our surrounding states. They're the envy of the country. They're the envy actually internationally.
Wow, okay.
It is, and I'm very proud in my district to have Francis Tuttle, which is really the brains behind the whole career tech system across the state.
Love that.
It is huge. Recent years, they've been so flexible and responsive to the market. They've started doing biomedical, nursing. It's not the VOTEC when I was in school of people going and learning really important mechanical skills.
Right.
They still have that.
Right.
But it's much more than that. Today's career tech system, it truly is the envy, not just of the surrounding states, but of the world.
Man, that's something cool that Oklahoma would definitely be proud of.
Yeah.
So, changing gears, just real quickly, I want to get your thoughts on the topic of government efficiencies. Now, this has been a topic that's been...
that's normally an oxymoron, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? But improving government efficiencies has been a huge deal that you've really been pushing this year and even before this year quite often. But one of the big topics was LOFT, the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency, and then also...
That's part of the budget deal, so we're getting that done. It's huge in order to hold agencies accountable and give the legislature the tools at its disposal to make informed decisions.
Right.
I'm extremely excited that Speaker McCall and Governor Stitt signed off on that idea. To be clear, Speaker McCall had another bill that was very similar that we have married together into the version that will pass on to the governor's desk. So he's done a lot of work on it too, but I'm extremely excited that that's embedded into the budget.
Great. So expanding on that just a little bit, the importance of LOFT, the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency. Can you kind of go into those details? We've talked about that in some podcasts a while back ago, but just to kind of retouch on that.
Yeah, and if you didn't listen and commit that to memory, shame on you.
Absolutely, right?
I'm talking to you.
Oh, to me.
No, I'm talking to the listeners.
Oh, all those listeners.
Yeah. No, LOFT, Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency. Many states, indeed most states across the United States, they have a much more robust budgeting process within the legislature.
Right.
Now, make no mistake, we have third floor staff led by a gentleman named Anthony Sammons. They do a fabulous job.
Yes, absolutely.
In fact, you were down there for a while.
I was down there. That's why I know they do an awesome job.
I poached you. They do a little less awesome a job now. No, they do a tremendous job. The person who replaced you is doing good work as well. Mm-hmm. But and the House has a similar type setup. Both do really good work. But what they're not able to do is performance evaluations, go in and look, and not because they're not capable, because they just don't have enough people, they don't have enough tools at their disposal.
Right.
So what this does is it's a shared service between the House and the Senate, tantamount to like a congressional budget office, where they can look at programs and they can say, okay, this is what the legislature passed. This was our intention. Are they hitting the mark?
Right.
and it's going to be a huge tool. They can work in partnership with the state auditor. The bill allows the state auditor to perform some of the performance evaluations if need be.
Great. Okay.
So it's not a duplication of effort. What it is just a turbocharged budgeting process, and I'm pumped to see what kind of results we're going to get out of it.
Absolutely. And I think the general public would be pumped too, just to know that the budgeting process is going to be way more efficient. Agency performance is going to be more closely examined, and
transparency.
Transparency.
It's in the title, and it's not just in the title. That is the purpose of it, to get the public more information and legislators more information, so we can be held accountable and we can hold accountable.
Right. So you mentioned something there also with government efficiency, is that there was a lot of money allocated to the state auditor to hire 10 new auditors. Can you kind of speak to that and how those will kind of work together?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that people have been talking about is we need more performance audits. So we need greater accountability from the executive branch, the constitutional officer of the auditor. And they've been hamstrung by not having enough auditors. So when we find ourselves in a better financial picture, you don't just say, hey, we don't need to look close at the numbers, we're fine financially. It's not just when you're down financially that you look. When you're up financially, it's extremely important, I would argue even more important, to dig in to make sure you don't get lax on it and atrophy. And so 10 new auditors will be a huge benefit to the state auditor and inspector's office, and hopefully be able to help find more efficiencies and find how to direct taxpayer dollars to more greater outcomes that we're looking for.
Absolutely. A lot more efficiencies can be discovered then. I mean, just really exciting stuff going on with just making sure improving government efficiency around here.
Yeah.
Shifting gears one more time on you. Criminal justice reform, it's a huge deal. We talked about that quite a bit last week on the podcast with Senator Thompson.
Which I'm sure everyone listened to.
Of course. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. No, another thing is the public safety was a huge investment in this year's budget. Correctional officer raises. Can you kind of speak to that and the importance that is going to play?
So the greatest need in state government is to make sure we keep our foot on the pedal on education. As far as employees go and shortages, teachers are one of those. Correctional officers are the other.
Right.
Not that other people at DOC aren't important, but that the hardest arena to get people, to recruit people in the Department of Corrections, are the people who have to interface with the inmates, the prisoners, on a day-to-day basis behind the razor wire. Not just correctional officers, but psychologists and others who serve in that capacity.
That's an important distinction, because we've had a lot of questions on, is it just correctional officers getting the raise, or is it also other workers behind the wire, as you say, that are working?
It's all those behind the wire. That's what we accounted for. And so, you know, when you have the oil field going hot, there's competition for those correctional officers and others. Frankly, fast food restaurants are competing for some of them. I mean, their wages were too low.
Wow.
To put their lives on the line and keep the public safe. And so we made an investment, average of $4,000 increase for correctional officers and those others that are behind the wire. And it's an important investment, extremely important investment. We also made an investment in mental health and substance abuse service to the tune of $10 million on mental health services as it relates to criminal justice. And that's huge. So hopefully, if we spend money up front before anyone gets behind the wire, we can save a ton of money taxpayer-wise, but even more importantly, that a human being's life is not wasted away in addiction and mental health issues, that they are able to live a life as they were created to live.
That's right.
And so investing in those upfront services are, I wouldn't even say equally important, more important. And we are doing that, but we can't bury our head in the sands. We have a lot of people incarcerated. We're working at winnowing that down. We need to make sure they're protected from each other, but also that the people who have done no crime and are there working on behalf of the state to keep us safe are adequately compensated.
No doubt. Okay. Again, on the public safety side of things, a huge investment into the district attorneys to labeled as district attorney funding reform. Can you kind of explain the importance of that's going to play?
Yeah, and so that may be a little misleading, to be honest with you. So the DA 991 fund, so a supervision fund of district attorneys, currently that goes to the district attorney's council and it stays there and it's distributed out. there's an incentive to have longer supervision and all that, perhaps. And so what we've done is we've decided, you know what, courts and district attorneys, it's probably not the wisest public policy to have them instituting fines and fees that fund their offices. Let's put that to general revenue and then put the money back to them in the form of appropriations to make sure there's no incentive to push the fines and fees. We've done that for a long time with DPS. So when a highway patrol officer pulls you over, DPS doesn't get to keep a part of that revenue. So if you get a $520 ticket on the side of the road by a DPS officer, DPS is not $520 richer. It goes to the general revenue, and completely independent of that, we make decisions of how much does DPS need to run their operations.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that there's not a perverse incentive to pull over as many people or to ticket as much. That's the same logic that we're applying here on district attorneys and judges. They're all across the state. There's 26 different district attorneys. They're good people elected by their constituents, but human nature kicks in sometimes. And we just want to take that argument off the table. Let's fund them how they deserve to be funded, and this is the start of that reform. It's by no means the conclusion of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Pro Tem, just got to touch on a few of the highlights there within the budget. Just to recap, I mean, education is a huge investment for this year. I mean, first time in state history that the common education is going to be funded over $3 billion.
In appropriations only. Yeah, yes, appropriations
absolutely.
only. Yeah. Go ahead. Keep going.
And then beyond that, I mean, criminal justice is a huge deal. I mean, even, we didn't talk about it today, but there was a bunch of big agriculture investments in rural Oklahoma. So, I mean, just overall, I mean, are you excited about this budget? How do you feel about it overall?
No, I said at the press conference, I didn't have to feign excitement. I was truly excited, and I remain excited.
Good.
You know, sometimes you have buyer's remorse. You go buy a car, and then you get home, and you realize, oh, the leather's torn here, or there's an oil leak. This one, we made the deal a few days ago, and I'm still equally excited. In fact, I get more excited because it's becoming a reality.
Man, that's awesome.
And I've seen the Senate caucus, the Senate body, Republicans and Democrats, work together in unprecedented ways this year to achieve big things. This budget's just one of those.
Man.
And so this has been by far the most successful session since I've been here. And I'm just excited to be a part of the Oklahoma State Senate, but more importantly, I'm excited to be an Oklahoman.
Yes, absolutely. And I can just say, you can say from being within the Capitol, you sense a sense of excitement around here, and just things. It's a good time to be an Oklahoman. Wouldn't you agree with that statement?
No, I'd say it's a great time to be an Oklahoman.
That's a way better way of putting it. It is a great time to be an Oklahoman because there's a lot of great things happening in our state.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely.
Well, Pro Tem, we're about out of time here, but do you have anything else to add before we sign off?
No, I appreciate any feedback people have, questions they have, and I'm sure you'll tell them how to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys, you can email us directly here on the podcast. You can email us at ondeck@oksenate.gov. We get questions like what we talked about today about the budget and different things like that. So if you do have a question for Pro Tem Treat, feel free to email us, and we'll be sure to talk about it on the next podcast.
Yeah, email that email. Sometimes I look back, 3 or 4 weeks later to the Facebook account where we repost it and people have asked questions there. We'll try to do a good job responding there, but send emails there. I'd love to be able to address any questions people have.
Love it, absolutely. And you can get a lot more in-depth and detailed with your questions through that form of communication. So, well, Pro Tem, I guess if you don't have anything else, we'll sign off. One other thing, we mentioned this for the last few weeks, we're now on iTunes. Our podcast is on iTunes. So all you have to do to subscribe is go on to iTunes and search Oklahoma Senate Republicans, and then our On Deck podcast is the first one. So, other than that, Pro Tem, thank you so much for joining us.
Sine die is in our sights. We're excited.
Coming up quick. Absolutely. Yeah. Next week, we're going to talk about sine die, what the heck that even means. And it pretty much means the last day of school is coming up here real quick.
Well, you didn't have to give away. You're supposed to be like Dukes of Hazzard, where we're up over the river and people come back to tune in next week to see what sine die means. You just gave it away.
Leave them on the cliffhanger here. Next week, we're going to be talking about sine die, and we'll tell you exactly what that means.
Ooh, tune back in.
Love it. Absolutely. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Bye.